To It's Called Football as we recap for you Matchday 4 of the Premier League, the final round of fixtures before our first international break of the season. Just a quick refresher in case you weren't able to catch the matches during the past weekend or simply forgot about it because there was a lot of excitement that happened and a lot of goals that took place across the 10 matches this past weekend. We began with Luton Town at home for the first time this season, hosting West Ham United, who are in great form. Sheffield United and Everton facing off, with both of them looking to get their first points on the board. Brentford hosting Bournemouth, Tottenham travelling away to Burnley, and Chelsea hosting Nottingham Forest. While some of these fixtures did bring about a couple of surprises, not all of them did. So these matches saw West Ham United uh, win by a single goal, perhaps a little less than what people expected given how West Ham have performed. But credit to Luton for at least fighting hard and not just giving up when the match looked dead and buried. Sheffield United and Everton are both now officially on the board with 1 point each after they managed to battle it out to a 2-all draw. Uh, which saw Everton goalkeeper Jordan Pickford make a couple of mistakes, but also pull off a fantastic save 3 times in the final few minutes to save a point for Everton. Brentford, surprisingly perhaps, dropped points against Bournemouth, where Bournemouth actually went 2-1 up at one point in the match before Brentford managed to equalize in the final minutes. Tottenham did not have any problems going away to Burnley, although they did give away a couple of goals. They managed to score 5 themselves, with their new captain, Heung-min Son, the Korean international, getting a hat trick. Chelsea were probably the one surprise result so far out of these, who hosted Nottingham Forest. And although Forest have been reasonably impressive in their games, even against big sides like Arsenal and Manchester United, they pulled off the ultimate shock here as they came away 1-0 winners away to Chelsea. Our other fixtures from Matchday 4 saw Manchester City, the reigning champions, hosting Fulham, Brighton taking on Newcastle in one of our featured matches of the weekend, as we pointed out in our Matchday 4 preview. Crystal Palace then started off Sunday's matches by hosting Wolves. Liverpool welcomed Aston Villa to town, and then the big match of the entire weekend came right at the end as Manchester United travelled to Arsenal. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Manchester City ran riot over Fulham. We saw another hat-trick in this game as Erling Haaland, surprise, surprise, scored a hat-trick of his own. 3 goals, which all but clinched the match fairly easily, although there was a little controversy in the Manchester City match where their second goal, scored by defender Nathan Ake, potentially should have been ruled offside because a fellow Manchester City player was standing in an offside position and might have impeded the goalkeeper's judgment from Fulham. Brighton and Newcastle did not disappoint, and actually we saw a third hat trick over the weekend. This has only happened once before, where 3 hat tricks have been scored in a single day in the Premier League. We saw actually 18-year-old Irish player Evan Ferguson, who plays for Brighton, score all 3 goals for them, while Newcastle were only able to salvage one. Crystal Palace had a very enthralling match against Wolves. This match actually was 0-0 at halftime, but goals from Eze and Edouard managed to see off the threat from Wolves, although they did manage to score a couple for themselves. Liverpool had a fairly comfortable outing against Aston Villa. Villa didn't really ever cause any problems, and Liverpool are starting to look much more like the force that they used to be before last season. It is very possible that they make a huge comeback this time around, and they're looking extremely strong. Arsenal and Manchester United faced off in a heated battle. This fixture almost never fails to disappoint. Uh, sorry, it actually almost never fails to excite. My mistake. And the same happened this time, actually. United posed little threat but still managed to get a goal, and Arsenal's eventual victory came in the final bits of stoppage time. More on that a little bit later. So the results of the weekend see the table like this, where Manchester City, still with a perfect record, 4 wins out of four, a healthy goal difference of +9, and a maximum possible of 12 points so far, sit on their own at the top of the table, while four teams below them are tied on 10 points, but separated only by goal difference. Tottenham and Liverpool have each moved a spot, and West Ham have dropped down to fourth place despite their victory, simply because Liverpool and Tottenham picked up wins by a larger margin that have now put them above West Ham. Arsenal, although they haven't made up all the ground yet on their rivals above them in goal difference, are still staying neck and neck in terms of points, and their victory by 2 goals over United will only help their goal difference. They are not far behind now. Brighton have a healthy goal difference, but due to their one defeat so far, they are behind on points in sixth place. Crystal Palace's victory managed to bring them up from the bottom half of the table into seventh for now, and Brentford's draw has kept them in the top 10 as well. Nottingham Forest's victory over Chelsea has also propelled them from the bottom half into ninth place, while Aston Villa, who were in seventh last week, have now dropped down to 10th after their defeat against Liverpool. The bottom half sees a few surprise names in these bottom 10 places. Manchester United's defeat at Arsenal uh, takes them back down into the bottom half of the table for now, although just barely. Chelsea's shaky form continues, and their home defeat to Forest will be a blow. They are now sitting in 12th place. This is exactly where they ended up finishing last season. And at the moment, they still have to kind of put together a clear plan if they're going to propel themselves up the table again. Fulham and Newcastle are going to be a little disappointed to be where they are right now, given that both of them finished comfortably in the top half last season. Newcastle, in particular, since their opening day victory, where they won 5-1 against Aston Villa, have now had three successive defeats, albeit against tricky opponents in Manchester City, Liverpool, and now Brighton. Still, Newcastle will want to set things right after the international break. Wolves and Bournemouth remain where they are, and Sheffield, although they did pick up a point against Everton, they still remain in 17th place, as they were before the weekend. Everton's point, however, has finally taken them off the bottom spot in the table. Everton now have finally scored a couple of goals, which will only help them if this relegation race ends up going down to goal scoring to decide who occupies the bottom three places. Still, it's not a good position that Everton are in right now, and they are still without a win. They will be hoping to set that right after the break when they host Arsenal. Luton Town and Burnley occupy the bottom two spots, perhaps unsurprisingly because their match against each other was postponed due to Luton Stadium being unprepared and not quite ready to be used in match week two. However, their goal difference for both these teams is nothing to be proud of at the moment, and they need to start putting it right. They need to get at least a point on the board at the moment. So we will remain and see what ends up happening when the Premier League resumes in a couple of weeks. So, some of our top moments from this match day. As we said already, we saw three hat tricks, which is a very, very rare occurrence to happen in football. in one weekend. Erling Haaland, no surprise really for him to score a hat trick. He did the same last season quite a few times, a few in the league and some outside the league as well. But he picked up the match ball for Manchester City. Evan Ferguson, 18 years old, very impressive that he also came away with 3 goals for Brighton in their win over Newcastle. And Heung-min Son with a hat trick as he led Tottenham and inspired them to a 5-2 victory at Burnley. The other main player that kind of made some headlines is ex-Manchester United player and current Nottingham Forest footballer Anthony Elanga, who scored Nottingham Forest's goal to beat Chelsea. The goal did end up coming from an error from Moises Caicedo. That is now 2 errors, high-profile ones that he's made, which have cost Chelsea dearly. Chelsea will need to figure out very quickly how to resolve this problem and get Caicedo settled into their team because at the moment he has not necessarily had the impact that they might have hoped to see from their record signing. The big match, however, Arsenal and Manchester United, like we said before, pretty much never disappoints. It's always a fiery fixture. And now that both teams are starting to improve and get back to what their fans are used to seeing from them, the fixture has a little bit more of a spark to it again, which was missing perhaps for a couple of years. Uh, Marcus Rashford for Manchester United actually opened the scoring in this game on 27 minutes, despite the fact that it was pretty much all Arsenal pressure before that in this game. And Arsenal responded the way that they would have wanted to going behind within about 2 minutes of that goal and 35 seconds of play. Arsenal captain Martin Odegaard scored the equalizer on 28 minutes and made sure the scores were level going into halftime. There was some incidents involving VAR, although it should be mentioned that this time VAR and the officials that handled it actually got their decisions spot on. An initial penalty call in Arsenal's favour was overturned after the referee had a look at the camera and deemed that there wasn't enough contact to justify a penalty. And an offside goal for Manchester United on 88 minutes was ruled out. It was a very, very tight call in terms of offside and very clever thinking from an Arsenal defender to catch the United player offside before he ran through on goal to put in the net. The real drama, however, then came later on. Gabriel Jesus scored a goal very, very late in the match, but before that, still in stoppage time, came the first Arsenal goal for their record signing, Declan Rice, who they brought from West Ham United over this past summer. To give you an idea of just where this drama took place, Declan Rice's goal to put Arsenal 2-1 up came from a corner kick in the 6th minute of stoppage time. And then because some time was added on due to celebrations and substitutions and so on, the game went on a little bit longer, and Arsenal took full advantage of that when Manchester United committed players going forward and ended up getting caught on the counter-attack for Gabriel Jesus to score in the 11th minute of additional time and make sure the result was put beyond any doubt whatsoever. It is a huge morale boosting victory for Arsenal, and for myself personally as an Arsenal fan, it is always, always a delight to beat Manchester United, especially in a way like this. So Arsenal can go into an international break thrilled and buoyed by this result. United now have a couple of weeks where they have to figure out how it all went wrong for them, how to fix this kind of an issue, and then prepare for a tough match against Brighton next match day, which will be in a couple of weeks. So, how did we do in our predictions for this match week? Well, as I said in the Matchday 4 preview, I thought that West Ham might have been a little bit more comfortable in their victory and come out 3-1 winners. Ultimately, Luton provided a little bit tougher test, but West Ham did still come out 2-1 winners. Sheffield and Everton, although I predicted a draw, didn't necessarily predict that many goals, and they finished 2-2 rather than 1-1. Brentford and Bournemouth. Now, I did expect Brentford to pull out a victory, but credit to Bournemouth for rallying, for continuing to fight, and stealing a point. Burnley and Spurs. Spurs did win by a margin of 3 goals in their actual result, but a couple more goals for each side. So I'm going to count that as a win because I did predict the margin correctly. One that I didn't get right, of course, is Chelsea and Forest. I did think Chelsea had perhaps gotten their act together a little more, but maybe not. And obviously got Forest's goal right that they would score, but I'm a little surprised Chelsea didn't, although they weren't really all that great on the day. Manchester City and Fulham again. I predicted a win for City by 4 goals to 0. City did win by a 4 goal margin, so kind of like the Spurs result. I'm going to take that as a win. Um, that I got it at least mostly right. Brighton and Newcastle, I was surprised by because I did think Newcastle would be a tougher test than they eventually ended up being for Brighton. And obviously, I can hold my hands up. Brighton deserved to win that game, and my prediction was completely wrong there. Palace, I did predict to win by a goals margin against Wolves, although each side scored a goal more than I predicted. Um, Decent enough result there. And Villa were a little bit disappointing and didn't score, but Liverpool were about as dominant as I kind of expected them. The one I'm thrilled about is that my prediction for the final match of the weekend did not come true, although it was a hair's breadth of an offside call away from being the result that I had been afraid of. Obviously, I am absolutely delighted that Manchester United did not win this game and Arsenal came out with a 3-1 victory, which they will feel they deserved on the balance of play. I think that's all from us for now for Matchday 4's recap. Like we said, there's now a couple of weeks where many players from the Premier League have been called up for their international countries to play matches for different qualifiers or friendly matches against other countries for either qualifiers for big tournaments or just friendly matches to make sure the players keep fit and in shape. We will still be posting some videos over these next couple of weeks, perhaps a little bit of a surprise in store for some of those videos. But we'll be talking to you soon, and stay tuned for the next videos coming up on It's Called Football.